All right, we have huge news today. It is Sunday, December 1st, 2024. President Donald Trump has nominated Kash Patel to be the next FBI director. We've been pushing for Kash for 3 weeks, pointing out on X what they've been doing to him behind the scenes. Well, he's done it. This is probably the most important appointment Trump's made yet when it comes to disclosure, to transparency. Donald Trump will be the disclosure president. Also, Tom Homan, Trump's new border czar, coming out and saying they are going after the NGOs who are funding, who are organizing, orchestrating the constant unmitigated flow of migrants into the United States. And the sheer panic from the legacy media and the establishment order over all of this speaks volumes, especially over Cash Patel. Wait till you see this. And the new BRICS currency that we've been hearing so much about, that these politicians have been scared to death to even address or talk about publicly. Well, it may have just ended in disaster. We have it all. But before we get started, thank you for liking and sharing these videos. It really helps out the channel. And consider subscribing so you don't miss these regular updates. President Trump taps Cash Patel to be the next FBI director, announcing last night on social media, writing, "I am proud to announce that Cash Patel will serve as the next FBI director. Cash is a brilliant lawyer, investigator, and America First fighter who spent his career exposing corruption, defending justice, and protecting the American people. He played a pivotal role in uncovering the Russia hoax, standing up as an advocate for truth, accountability, and the Constitution. Cash served as Chief of Staff at the DoD, Deputy Director of National Intelligence, and Senior Director for Counterterrorism at the National Security Council. Cash has also tried over 60 jury trials. This new FBI will end the growing crime epidemic in America, dismantle the migrant criminal gangs, and stop the evil scourge of human and drug trafficking across the border. Cash will work under our great Attorney General Pam Bondi to bring back fidelity, bravery, and integrity to the FBI. Booyah." Now, we've been pushing Cash for weeks on this channel, and there's a reason. He is the real deal, people. It's why we've been highlighting on X, which if you're not following me there, I recommend you do, all the ways that the media and Mitch McConnell, especially Mitch McConnell, has been trying to get his longtime friend Mike Rogers to worm his way into Trump's orbit and go after this job. That would have been the Trojan horse they needed to completely stall out Trump's second term. Well, he saw through it, and he picked Cash. This is just huge. There are countless, and I mean countless reasons why it's so huge. But first, the deep state is now at its most dangerous. They are coming, make no mistake about it. They will try their damnedest to prevent this from happening. Cash needs to be extremely careful. Tulsi has to be careful. They all have to be on alert right now, and most especially Donald Trump. They all know this. It's why Trump's been hunkered down at Mar-a-Lago. I think he's only left like one time in the last few weeks because there are very real and serious threats that they're dealing with. And now Cash has been put into the bullseye. They will be coming for him. He's now public enemy number one. And just as a warm-up, just to give you a taste of how badly they don't want this to happen, watch how fast all of the intel spokes, all these spokespeople for the intel agencies ran onto legacy media literally within minutes of Trump announcing this. Roll the tape.
Is there enough backbone there, do you think, to defeat multiple nominees?
I don't know. I think it's possible. And look, we saw it with Matt Gaetz already, and I think that I was actually surprised how quickly that happened. To me, Cash Patel, and I don't say this lightly, is the most dangerous nominee that we've seen yet to our democracy. I mean, you might think that having Pete Hegseth running the military is a greater level of danger because of his lack of experience, or Tulsi Gabbard at intelligence. But just as far as the threats to democracy that we were warning about before the election, and Cash Patel was a key player inside the Trump White House, pushing for and orchestrating the coup attempt in 2020. He was trying to completely take control of the Justice Department at the time. He was Trump's top lieutenant who was willing to do anything and advance any lie in service of his attempt to overturn that last election, to such a degree that there were many people that were Trump appointees in 2020 who were staying around and saying no, like standing in the breach and saying, no, not Cash Patel. Like, you cannot put Cash Patel as a temporary leader of the Justice Department, et cetera. These are Trump appointees. And so, we'll see what happens in the Senate. But if Trump had people around him that were quasi-loyalists that were like, that guy's too far, who knows what that'll mean for the Senate.
I almost can't believe it's really happening. Trump is on the warpath, people. Cash has promised to release the Epstein files, the P. Diddy files, JFK files. He was instrumental in learning everything we know about Russia collusion, which is why, if you're Andy McCabe or James Comey, you are horrified to learn that this man will be leading the FBI.
The fact that Cash Patel is profoundly unqualified for this job is not even like a matter for debate. So I think what we should really be thinking about right now is, what does this signal in terms of Donald Trump's intent for the FBI? The installation, or the nomination, I guess we should say at this point, of Kash Patel as FBI director can only possibly be a plan to disrupt, to dismantle, to distract the FBI, and to possibly use it as a tool for the president's political agenda. And, as an organization, we know what that looks like. This country has been there before, right? The pre-Watergate FBI, the J. Edgar Hoover FBI, struck fear in the hearts of Americans across the spectrum of politicians, people in entertainment, people in the civil rights community, because the director operated at the direction of presidents to collect political intelligence and to utilize the legal authorities, the investigative authorities of the FBI to terrorize and intimidate Americans.
And look, it's clear Trump has a game plan for his second term. Nominating Kash Patel as FBI director confirms dismantling the deep state is atop his agenda. Tulsi Gabbard in charge of the IC, Elon and Vivek completely cleaning house, removing 80% of the federal government, RFK Jr. in charge of MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, and holding those accountable for the pandemic, Pam Bondi at DOJ. If you aren't energized, or at least hopeful as an American that this cabinet is going to at least attempt to fix the corruption that's been allowed to grow and fester for decades, I don't know what to say. In another story, Donald Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, says they are going after the NGOs responsible for funding, for organizing, and really just orchestrating the flow of millions of migrants into the United States, saying they aren't messing around. They plan on getting to the bottom of exactly who and what's behind all of this, stopping them and then holding them accountable and exposing it all to the American people. Roll the tape.
I tell you what. The Trump team coming to town, we're going to take control January 20th, and people are going to be held accountable. We're going to be very transparent. We're going to get behind. What did the United Nations have to do with this open border crisis? Who in the administration, the Biden administration, opened the doors on this humanitarian crisis? What NGOs were involved in this? We're going to be very transparent to American people, and we're going to tell them the truth, what happened on this border. Again, by design, and we're going to let the American people know who was involved, why, and hold them accountable.
This is huge. You rarely ever see this or hear this on mainstream media. The NGOs funded by the UN, the United Nations, and who knows who else are the organizations behind the scenes that are marketing to the millions of Central and South Americans how to enter the United States. They have offices, employees in these South American countries handing out flyers and pamphlets. We've showed them before over on our Rumble channel with instructions on how to make the journey. Have you ever wondered how it's possible that there's this constant, unmitigated flow of people who form these caravans in this professionally organized way? It's not organic. It's organized by these non-governmental organizations, likely funded by the government or the UN. Why? I don't know. And with what money? Did the Biden administration provide them the money, provide them grants of some sort or funding? I don't know. Because that would mean we, the American people, are funding the flow of these millions of people into the country. Like what? Well, Tom Homan says they're going to be getting to the bottom of this, and they're going to let the American people know the truth about who's behind it and why they're doing it. In another story, Donald Trump announces 100% tariffs on Russia and China's new BRICS currency and any other dollar alternatives. Writing on Truth Social yesterday, the idea that the BRICS countries are trying to move away from the dollar while we stand by and watch is over. We require a commitment from the countries that they will neither create a new BRICS currency nor back any other currency to replace the mighty US dollar, or they'll face 100% tariffs and should say goodbye to selling into the wonderful US economy. They can find another sucker. There is no chance that the BRICS will replace the US dollar in international trade, and any country that tries should wave goodbye to America. Wow. That's all I have to say. Wow. That is the definition of putting America first. Anyone who says Trump is good for Russia or good for China can just be dismissed outright. The BRICS countries have been working on a gold-backed dollar replacement for decades, literally over a decade, while the U.S. just watched in befuddlement. Trump comes in and just takes a wrecking ball to it. Whether he'd actually tariff China and Russia 100% is besides the point. It's the fact that he's addressing the giant fat elephant in the room that every politician, Jerome Powell at the Fed, Janet Yellen at Treasury, that all of them have been too scared to mention or discuss. In fact, the only politician that I remember that even tried to address this was Vice President-elect J.D. Vance at a Senate hearing last year, something very few people even saw or probably knew about. Watch this.
I'm struck by some of the by the idea that you could make a similar argument about the reserve currency status of the United States dollar. Americans have enjoyed one of the greatest privileges of the international economy for the last nearly 8 decades, a strong dollar that acts, of course, as the world's reserve currency. You know that better than I do. Now, this has obviously been great for American purchasing power. We enjoy cheaper imports. Americans, when they travel abroad, benefit from lower costs. But it does come at a cost to American producers. I think in some ways you can argue that the reserve currency status is a massive subsidy to American consumers, but a massive tax on American producers. Now, I know the strong dollar is sort of a sacred cow of the Washington consensus, but when I survey the American economy and I see our mass consumption of mostly useless imports on the one hand and our hollowed out industrial base on the other hand, I wonder if the reserve currency status also has some downsides and not just some upsides as well. And let me just put a final point on this, and I'd love to get your thoughts on that, Chairman Powell. We're, of course, now the main supporter of a massive land war in Europe between the Russians and the Ukrainians. I read recently, and I'm not going to comment on how perfect or precise these estimates are, but I read recently that the United States is trying to ramp up production from 14,000 artillery shells to 20,000 artillery shells. That's per month, while the Russians are firing 20,000 artillery shells in Ukraine per day. And when I look at the American economy, we have a lot of financial engineers and a lot of diversity consultants. We don't have a lot of people making things. And I worry that the reserve currency status and the lack of control we have over our currency is perhaps driving that. I'd love to get your feedback on that. What are the upsides and downsides of the reserve currency?
That's a big question to try to answer.
You have 2 minutes, today. Chairman Powell, so plenty of time.
I can't even get started on that. So we are the world's reserve currency, of course, and that's because of our democratic institutions. It's because of our control over inflation over many, many, many years. The world trusts the rule of law in the United States, and those are the things. So once you're the world's reserve currency, it's used in all over the world in transactions, and it's the place where people want to be in times of stress, is in dollar-denominated assets. Now, so of course we benefit by being able to pay for our goods all over the world, pay for everything anywhere in the world mostly with dollars. That's an advantage. There are some economic theory around that it also has burdens of various kind, but I can't call it all back to mind. But the other thing is, it's a very stable equilibrium, but it's not a perfect one. It's not a permanent one, rather. So there isn't any obvious candidate to replace the United States right now where you can have free flow of capital in and out of the country, where you can really trust the rule of law and democratic institutions, and keeping price stability, which you can here.
Do you think it gives us less control over our own currency, the fact that it's become the world's reserve currency?
Control over our currency. I'm not sure. So essentially, what we try to control is price stability, and no, it doesn't. It doesn't make it harder for us to keep inflation under control. The United States has a smaller external sector than most large economies, where it's only about 15%. So mainly, what affects inflation in the United States is domestic supply and demand.
Do you think it makes it harder for us to and to fight back against currency manipulation, to control the export and import flows in a way that stabilizes our own manufacturing sector?
Well, I mean, what's important there is really the level of the dollar, and when the dollar is stronger, obviously our wares are more expensive abroad and that kind of thing. But we don't have an opinion on matters of the level of the dollar really matters for the Treasury Department and the elected government, not for the Fed.
Thank you, Chairman Powell.
All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.